Hey, it's Tanya, and I just talked to Weston Zimmerman. He has started an app for construction workers and for contractors. That's super, super cool. Kind of just on accident, really, because he was working in the industry as a landscape contractor. And his insights on business, you guys, you're going to want to listen to this episode. They're super powerful. He has just like all these little like small nuggets where you're like, yes, yes, yes. And just hearing his story and his mission is super empowering and exciting, whether you resonate with what he's selling and what he's promoting or not. I just think it's a really interesting story. And I think it's going to be really helpful for people as getting advice about contracting in general. If you're buying a home, trying to get stuff remodeled or flipping houses and things like that, this episode's going to be beneficial to you too, because he talks a lot about the things to look for, what to avoid, and just a lot of insights around contractors, which is what a lot of people get stressed about. And a lot of people spend a lot of money on that. So get get started listening to the podcast with Weston. Super excited to hear what you like about this episode, and see you soon.
Hi, this is Garrett Sutton, and you're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons. If you're listening to our podcast, go leave us a 5-star review. All of our links can be found in the video description or show notes below.
Hi there, and welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Schultz, the Money Life Coach. And today's guest is Weston Zimmerman. He's the co-founder and CEO of SynkedUp. It's an award-winning landscaping business management software. And I'm super excited for you guys to hear his background and learn from him as far as like the contracting side of sometimes when you're, buying a home or want to invest, what that looks like for you. So Weston, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. This will be great.
Sweet. Yeah. So let's just jump right in and tell us a little bit about yourself. If you want to share your story, go into detail on who you are and how you got into this.
Sure. So I am from central Pennsylvania. I live in the beautiful Appalachian Mountains. And I started working for a contractor, a landscaping company here in this area when I was 16 years old, before I even had my license. But I really wanted the job. And so I literally biked to work for 2 years until I got my license and kept on working. That's how I got started. I was working for a contractor and basically just a team member on the crews, installing beautiful outdoor living spaces, water features. I loved the creativity of water features. And as I worked there, I got more and more involved in other aspects of the business. I ended up becoming the marketing director there as well. So I was responsible for all the content, all the lead gen, the website, all of that stuff. I was basically working almost 2 full-time jobs there and also taking the lead on a lot of the ops stuff. So we were completely on paper at the time that I started there. And a few years later, it was like, hey, we need to get off of paper and onto something better to manage our service tickets that come in, our jobs, our schedule, and communicating with clients and all of that stuff. So I started looking for products and we bought one and used it and loved it. It's a great company even to this day, but they were very much built for the frontline worker, the mobile app side, tracking time and that kind of thing, and not so much for the actual financial aspects of running a business and quoting jobs profitably. So what happened is we got another product for the budgeting and estimating and all the numbers, making sure you're profitable and recovering your overhead as a contracting business.
Yeah.
But the front line side of it was not great. And so we were in this world where we were running multiple products and still on spreadsheets and still on paper in some areas. And so that's the situation we were in when I came home from work one day. And my dad was working on his laptop on the back patio after dinner, and he was clicking around on some graphs. He was working for a new company that just bought him out, his business. And I was like, what are you doing? I was curious because he was clicking around on these graphs on his screen. I was totally like, this looks really interesting. And he said, I am just testing a software product. And I was like, you mean you're just building it? And so that's where the light bulb went on. And keep in mind, I never owned Tussie Landscaping, this company. I was just an employee. But I went back to the owners and was like, hey, guys, like, let's build what we can't find on the marketplace. And today I say that's the most naive thing I ever went out to do.
So easy. It's so easy.
Yeah, right. But that's how we got started. We got a quote for $67,000 to build our hopes and dreams. And that's what we thought we were going to get. The reality is software development is really expensive. And that wasn't even a drop in the bucket. But thanks be to God, here we are still alive and growing. Basically, what happened is we started developing that software product to fill that need of both the budgeting and estimating all the financial stuff. We call it the know your numbers aspect of business, plus all the ops of scheduling and tracking time and all of that. We started building it for Tussie Landscaping, but what I realized is that it wasn't a problem unique to us. It was an industry problem for contractors. And so I started developing this vision of like, let's build an actual SaaS product, a software as a service, and actually split it off as a company. And the owners of Tussie Landscaping eventually came on board with that idea. And today I run SynkedUp, which is a software product for contractors. I run that full time, and Tussie Landscaping still runs as it always had. And we're 3-4 years into the journey, serving hundreds of contractors all across North America. And the way I like to phrase it is our vision and our mission is to end entrepreneurial poverty for contractors, because so many contractors are salt of the earth people, really hardworking, love what they do. They take pride in their craft, but man, are they allergic to the office. They hate sitting down with their bookkeeper or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so what tends to happen is they work really hard. They're struggling financially. So they work harder and they're still struggling financially. They're barely surviving. And so our whole mantra is, thrive, not survive. And that's what lights me up. That's what gets me out of bed and every morning is just knowing the total 180s that SynkedUp as a product can do for contractors. And it's amazing. Some of the turnaround stories that are out there, have been experienced. And so it's a tremendous honor and privilege to do what I do.
That is really cool. I have so many questions, but it's so interesting how things lead you to other things. And you never were like, oh, I'm going to develop software like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
It came from a need and you figured it out, which I think is like a really cool entrepreneurial story on just like you saw a gap, you implemented it with the company you were already with. And then you're like, wait, I can actually help way more people and solve this problem. So yeah, what have been like, are they paying you monthly for like, is it a subscription model or like, how do you set up now with them to do all that?
Yeah, it's a subscription model. We do have some free resources. We give away a budgeting tool, which essentially what it is, it's a tool that helps you tally up all of your overhead expenses, all of your indirect equipment expenses as a contractor, and solve the math problem is the way I put it. Like essentially I'm saying, if I pay $10 for an item, how much do I need to mark that up just to break even?
Yep.
And then I add my net profit on top of that. So pricing jobs profitably is really 3 components. Your direct cost, what you pay for it, then your overhead recovery, like all your marketing, your insurance, your office admin, all the stuff that it takes to keep the lights on in a business, then your net profit. So those 3 together constitute what you should actually be charging as a contractor for your work.
Yeah. Yeah, that must be one of the hardest things to figure out. You hear that struggle with a lot of people in real estate or in trying to get something done at their house.
Yeah.
And like they give you one price or they don't know and then they come back later. Is like, do you try to solve that from the beginning? You don't have to do that back and forth or save that time and money and stress.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm guessing if you're in real estate and investing into properties and fixing them up and that kind of thing, you probably are familiar with hiring a contractor and getting them to do something for you. And one thing I can tell you from being on the contractor side of the equation is if a contractor gives you a bid for, let's say, a $50,000 makeover of fixing an outdoor living space or whatever, or fixing a roof or whatever it is. If they give you, say, a $50,000 price for the job, and then you say, cool, I want you to do it, but I only have 40. And they say, okay, sure, I'll do it for 40. Red flag.
Red
Red
flag.
flag.
That's a good one.
Because, and you might think, oh, great, I got a deal. That guy's not going to be making money. And when he's not making money, when he or she when they're not making money, when issues come up, which they always do, they're not going to have the margin or the room or the ability to really go over above and beyond and deliver that last 10% for you. And you're going to be frustrated. They're going to be frustrated. They're not making money and you're not getting what you want. That's why I'm saying it's a red flag. A
Yeah.
good contractor knows exactly what they need to charge to do the job and actually make a dollar doing it. And they're not going to budge. They will negotiate on scope all day, but they're not going to negotiate on price.
Right.
And another like kind of little scenario from from experience being on the contractor side is I've been a contractor selling work, and sometimes this scenario plays out where, let's say I bid a job for a contract for a homeowner, say even a real estate investor. I bid a job and the homeowner will say, cool, but I got a bid for 20% less. And as a contractor, my response to that is, okay, why haven't you hired them yet? And there's usually a reason. There's something in your sixth sense is telling you, I don't know if this is the right guy, even though it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And there's usually a reason. And if it is truly cheaper, there is an aspect to where, as contractors gain street cred and reputation, you start paying for them. Like you're hiring that contractor for a reason versus just give me 5 bids and I'll go with the cheapest one. And
Yeah.
and the whole thing about going with the cheapest one, the reason I'm not, even as a homeowner, I won't do that in my own place, is because there's always a race to the bottom. There's always a contractor out there that does not know their numbers, that is just hungry for work.
Yeah.
And will bid work at a price that's impossible to make any money at. They are always in every town. And those are the exact same contractors I was telling you earlier that when issues do come up, it turns into drama because there's no room on their end to do anything about it.
For sure. Yeah. And then you have to try to come back and maybe get more money, and then people are pissed at you. And then it's just like this whole. So how do you mitigate, like, does the app and the service that you work on figure out like time, like how long something's going to take? Like, I know obviously you save time with the estimating, which is huge. You're saying like 90%, save 90% of time on estimating, which is like a huge portion of these people's time. But how do you save time on figuring out how long it's going to take to get something done? Do you help? Is that part of the app as well, or the scope, or?
Yeah. So to give you a little bit of an overview of what the app does, like how it works, I have a model that I call the profit triangle. So picture a triangle. Profit is at the top point of the triangle. And then at the bottom points on each side is what I call the 2 profit killers. One is what I call the math problem. The other one is what I call the resources problem. The math problem is the one that is like, okay, how much do I need to mark up an item to break even? Like that's the math problem. How much is my overhead? So how much do I need to mark up to break even, then my net profit? And we fix the math problem by using what we call a Moore's calculator or a budgeting tool. And really what it is it's the act of you as a business or as a contractor entering in every expense your business has, every overhead expenses, all the equipment you have, all the marketing and the insurance, everything you have as a business. And then you also enter in all your direct costs. So I have 4 full-time people in the field. I spend this much on materials, blah, 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 blah. And then what the budgeting calculator does is it calculates exactly to the penny how much you need to charge per hour to not only pay your people, but also cover your overhead expenses and make your desired 10, 20% net profit.
That's amazing. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, so that fixes the math problem. Now you can just like put that problem away. It's not in your brain anymore.
Yeah.
And now estimating just becomes a matter of in the app. It's just drag and drop in. I need this much labor. I need this much product. I need this much this. I need this much that. And then you just say, I need 100 man hours. I need 20 tons of this stone or whatever it is. And it's doing all the math for you automatically as you're doing it. You're not even thinking, you're not even running a calculator. And to your point about like, how do you know how long it's going to take? And how much product is it actually going to take?
Yeah.
In SynkedUp, there's this concept of templates and production rates, which dramatically speed. That's where you get the 90% time savings on estimating, because instead of me reinventing the wheel on every single quote that I ever build, I just pull from a template, and then every item in that template, the labor, the product, has a production rate. And what that means is, hey, if I install a 500 square foot patio, how many hours will that take? And there's a production rate for that. So we help you figure out the production rates, obviously, if you start using SynkedUp. And then what you can do is you can literally enter in the measurements. Oh, 600 square feet, bam, it tells you exactly how many hours it's going to take.
Wow. Okay.
But so that there solves the math and the estimating problem, getting to the point where you're hitting send on that quote to your customer or your homeowner.
Yeah.
But then we still got to deal with the resources problem, because you could picture with me what would happen if you bid a job for 100 man hours of labor. The math is perfect on paper. We've done the budgeting, we've solved the math perfectly, but it actually ends up taking us 150 hours to complete the job. What happens? You lose money.
Yeah.
Even though the math was perfect on paper. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's what I call the resources problem. You did not have the correct amount of resources in your estimate. It actually took less or more resources than what was in the estimate, which is a total other topic from math.
Yeah.
So what we do there to solve that problem is we track in the mobile app. Employees are clocking in and clocking out every hour, every minute of payroll is getting tracked to a job.
Perfectly.
And then the same with materials. When the employees are clocking out, it's saying, here's the materials that were estimated in the job. What did you actually use? And all that's getting recorded, and receipts, et cetera, is all getting recorded. So in the end, you have a snapshot, we call it job costing, of estimated versus actual resources and expenses and hours. All of that is in there. So you can see exactly where you went wrong or where you went right. And the power of that is in the feedback loop that gives you, because I'll tell you a story that will highlight what I mean by that. In the early days at Tussy, before we had this, we were job costing, meaning we were comparing our actual expenses and resources against our estimated, but we were doing it completely manually on spreadsheets. Took weeks to get it all into the spreadsheet. It just took a while. So I was a crew foreman. I was doing the work out in the field. And in the old days, I would finish a job and then say 6 weeks later, I'd get a phone call from the salesperson saying, hey, we didn't do so well on this job. We went over on hours, or we used product. Why do you think that was? What should I change on the next estimate? And the quality of my answer was terrible, because I mean, that was 6 weeks ago. I'm on to my 5th job since then. But after we had SynkedUp and we were getting that feedback in real time, the mobile app will literally show you estimated versus actual in real time. The script completely flipped. Like, I was calling the salesperson before the job was even done, saying, hey, just saying, we're only half done, but we've already burned 80% of our man hours, and here's why. And so the quality of our learning increased exponentially. And so that's where you get that feedback loop. The sooner you get that, the more powerfully, or the more likely you are to only make that mistake one time.
Yeah.
And so to summarize all that up, SynkedUp will solve the math problem, calculating all the math and the overhead recovery and all of that. And then it'll track the jobs to help you see where you went wrong or where you went right on your actual estimate. And bingo, that's where you get predictable profits. And that's where you get a contractor that knows exactly what they have to charge to do the work. And if you see a contractor that's not budging on price, but will happily work with you on adjusting the scope to still achieve your vision, but try to match your budget for spending, that's a contract that's been around the block and probably the one you want to deal with.
Yeah. So it is like doing your research and a lot of just like education, but also it's just really cool, like product. I want to hear more about like your entrepreneur journey now and what that looks like on the day to day and like your long-term goals with this. Go into that a little bit.
Well, this is something I think about a lot. I kind of jokingly will say sometimes to people like, look, I'm just a hillbilly crew foreman from the hills of Pennsylvania, and I'm just accidentally building tech. Starting this, I didn't think of myself or view myself as a CEO or a tech founder, or I didn't, like, that's not the label I wore. I was just tenaciously working to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell in love with a problem. But it's been quite a journey, because what I had to learn, I was not a business owner even there at Tussy Landscaping. In the early days, I very much had a more of an employee mindset, but I did learn to have more of an owner mindset, in the latter days, of course, which led to the whole SynkedUp thing. But it was definitely a bit of a mental hurdle for me to kind of jump across and be like, no, like, I actually am a business owner. I actually am founding a tech company. I actually am CEOing a team of people like that. That was just a self-awareness thing to kind of, I don't know, like it's still something that I think about some, but I'm making progress and moving on. But today, what I am pouring my energy and brain energy into is just building the best business I can possibly build. And what I mean by saying that is I don't want to build a business that's bottlenecked by the owner operator. I don't want to be that. I'm trying to embody more and more the who, not how. We're about 15 people. So we're expanding beyond that phase where the owner has their fingers on everything. And you have a team of leaders now that, are responsible for outcomes. And I'm not a fan of top-down kind of business hierarchy. I'm much more like, let's align on the North Star. Let's get smart people into the room. And I was given a lot of autonomy and room to problem solve at Tuscan Landscaping. And I try really hard to give that to our people at SynkedUp. Like I want that innovation, that autonomy, that freedom, that culture of problem solving but bringing with it the heart and caring for the people, the customers. In our values, I wrote a line, something along the lines of caring for more than just the business transaction, also caring for the people and how you make them feel and actually serving their needs. I said, build the best business we can possibly build. And what I mean by that, I'll take another crack at summarizing that, is building a team of people that excel at what they do, are better at what they do than I am, and a team it's run by systems and processes that are executed with tenacious attention to detail. Basically what I'm saying is I don't want my own ego or like, oh, I want to be in control of XYZ. I don't want that to get in the way of the bigger SynkedUp mission. Like SynkedUp has become a bigger mission than just me. It's its own thing now. And like, I want to fuel that to touch as many contractors as we possibly can and help them end entrepreneurial poverty for those contractors. And so what I'm learning about that is that's all great and good, but man, that's a high bar. Like I have to grow. I have to stop assuming that the way I've always done things is the right way. Leading a handful of people with shovels in the ditches, so to speak, doing the dirty work is one thing. Leading a team of leaders, like leading leaders, is a completely another thing. And I just think I've heard other people say this is not original with me, but the more I'm in business, the more I think that is 1000% true, is that the owner dictates the ceiling of the business. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be this. I don't want to be a false ceiling strangling its growth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super powerful. What you're saying a lot is what we hear from a lot of people on this podcast. Just they end up getting into something almost like either by something happened personally. In my life, it was like me trying to figure out my own finances and wanting to get out of debt led me to financial coaching and being able to help more people learn what I learned. And I think you already have you're super humble and genuine because like, you know what it's like to be in the field, in the contractor. And then you were lucky where the company that you're working for allowed you to do different things in the business. It wasn't like, nope, you stay over there, mind your business. They saw that in you and you took control of that. And that was really cool because some people, I think what I'm saying too is like, if you're out there listening to this and you think, hey, maybe I want to do this, don't deny that calling or something, because you might be being called to like a higher purpose or some other thing in life instead of staying stuck in something because somebody's telling you to, because you never know how many more people you can help or what you're going to be able to do through that, which I think is like really cool what you're doing.
Amen. It was, trust me, I told you I started working there at Tussie when I was 16. I was your typical teenage employee. I'm not special. and I'll tell you this story to highlight that. So in the beginning, the first 4 or 5 years, I truly loved working outdoors with my hands, creating beautiful things. And I didn't even really care that much about what I got paid. I just loved doing what I was doing. And I lived for the weekend, that kind of thing. So then I got married. And suddenly it was like, oh, yeah, I would like to buy a home. I'd like to get ahead in life. I'd like to do all these things. And so my mindset as I would have been 21 at the time, 22. My mindset flipped to, I need to make more money. Which is a very typical standard employee mindset.
Yeah.
But it didn't help me. I didn't get anywhere with that mindset is the point I'm making. Like all I did was create tension with my relationship with the owners that I worked for. And it was a conversation. So one of the things that Tussie Landscaping did for me that was tremendously impactful for me, and this is, they sent me to an annual conference put on by Aquascape, which is a manufacturer of pond products for koi ponds and that kind of thing. And I love building water features. And so they sent me to that every year. I loved that company. They were awesome. And I was so desperate to do something about earning more, what's the future of my career look like, that I literally cornered the CEO of Aquascape at this event and it's like, hey, are you hiring? And he looked at me like I lost my mind. I was like, what is wrong with you? You're working for one of my best customers in the nation. Like, why would you want to work for us? And I was like, I want to make more money. And the typical employee speak, like, wrong mindset is the point I'm making. And he looked at me. I could tell he immediately knew where I was at in my own head.
Yeah.
And he just said, very simply, this whole conversation took 90 seconds. He just said very simply, you go home and you ask your boss what you can do to make your company more money so that you can make more money. And bingo, that was the end of the conversation. And
Adding value,
that,
finding a way to add more value.
yes, exactly. And as a young employee mindset, I had to learn that.
Yeah.
But that was a pivotal moment. Like, that was where a light bulb went off, and I literally did that. And it was from that point onward where the owners gave me rope to climb or hang myself. And from then on, I worked my way into adding value by doing all the marketing. And like, I was doing that. It was a seasonal business in Pennsylvania. So all winter long, I was working on marketing initiatives, content, YouTube channel, all of that stuff.
Great. Okay.
And added significant value to the company. And I more than doubled my income through what I was able to do over the next 5-6 years there at the company.
Wow.
So I pulled off what I wanted to do, but not how I thought I was going to do it. If you get the idea, I just look at that moment, and I'm always grateful to Greg Woodstock, the CEO of Aquascape, for giving me that advice, because it truly had, I don't know if he even remembers the conversation, but it truly had an impact on me. And today, as now an employer of people, I look for that mindset. I don't really care what you know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
I care more how you do it, how you show up, your mentality, your mindset.
Yeah.
Are you a person that just points problems out, or are you a person that sees a problem and quietly creates solutions to those problems?
Yeah. That was I worked with many tech companies too, GoPro, Stitch Fix, Adobe, Charles Schwab, Wells Fargo. And it was always like, come to me with the solution, not the problem. It was like everything solution oriented. If you can't have a growth mindset or come with ideas on how because otherwise you're all day, it's all problems. There's always a problem.
Yep.
Somebody's always mad. So yeah, that's a great just way to think about things in general, is like focusing on the problems, which a lot of people like to do.
Yeah, exactly. An easy kind of hack to hack the brain into getting into this gear is one of the things we try to really promote in our culture at SynkedUp is a 1-3-1 problem solving structure. And what I mean by that is the price of raising an issue or a problem, or maybe even a complaint, the price of raising something is coming with 3 potential solutions and your 1 preferred solution. If you come with a problem, or let's just say a complaint, if you don't have the 3 solutions, the answer is come back to me when you have the 3 solutions and your 1 preferred. Otherwise, the conversation's over until you have those 3 things. And that is really, of course, as an owner, you have to be disciplined to stick to your guns, or not stick to your guns, but like to be disciplined yourself.
Yeah.
Because as an owner mentality, as an entrepreneur, you have this problem-solving mindset. I've heard other people call it like the savior complex. Oh, there's a problem. Cool. Bam, here's a solution.
Sure.
Every time that I show up with the solution, I rob my team of the privilege of feeling the pride and the autonomy of coming up with a solution and solving the problem themselves.
Yeah.
And every time I do that, I make it less likely that they will do it themselves the next time.
Yeah,
Because
you're empowering them instead of telling them. You are giving them leadership, that leadership. Everyone should be like equal. It's not like the CEO is above everybody else, and it's like it should be more equal. So I love that approach.
Right.
A lot of people can do whatever business they have.
it's easy to sit here on a podcast and speak of this ideal, but I still have to catch myself and I still mess it up. Oh, I should have never even, it's like
Well,
when,
yeah.
even if you know the answer, hang on and ask them to like, what's your three suggestions or your three answers or your three solutions? And then maybe you can debate and pick one. And maybe it is maybe it is the answer that you had. What happens sometimes? The one that they bring is better than the one you had thought of in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. We make mistakes. We're human. It's
Yeah.
trying not to be nothing ever is going to be perfect, but I love that you're learning a lot. And it sounds like you've done a lot of that work and you're helping a lot of your team members, and it's really cool to see. And I want to get into the final round. I know we only have like 10, 15 minutes. So I have a couple final questions that we
Sure.
ask all of everybody that comes on the podcast. So I'm going to get into the first one. What's the biggest mistake you've ever made when it comes to your finance or business life? Can you think of one?
Finance, probably the biggest was just focusing on getting the work done and not paying attention to cash flow. It created a really icky situation for me because I spent money that I didn't have. And so I really had to scramble to overcome the deficit that I left for myself. But what I did, and I had my own kind of homebrew spreadsheet, kind of doing the best, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a CFO, I'm not a bookkeeper, but I created my own spreadsheet to kind of like do my best at calculating cash flow, but it had issues, got me into a pickle. And I reached out to my network and found a CFO that came in and worked with me fractionally or part-time and helped me build a cash flow projection spreadsheet model that has been tremendously powerful for me. Cause like now I can actually plan. Now I can actually like, hey, do scenarios. If we hired a person here, what would that do to cash flow? Would we have to dip into the line of credit? Would you like, because it's so easy to look at what you have in the bank and be like, okay, this is what I have, but you have to be able to look forward 6, 12, 18 months and project that cash flow out to sanity check the rest of your business decisions. So that was probably one of the most stressful situations I got myself into and had to go find someone smarter than me to help me get out of that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the good news is there's always this people like, okay, figure this out for me or show me what to do.
Yeah.
It comes to
Yeah.
business.
And to that point, that whole experience led me to, I just got done saying I'm not a CFO. Every minute that I'm not in QuickBooks, the better. But it got to the point though where I had no idea how to read a P&L and a balance sheet in the beginning. And now I'm watching those like a hawk and I know what they're saying. And so that's what happens. The point I'm trying to make is that even if you're not a nerd, like a bookkeeper or a nerdy or a financial guru type person, you still at least have to be able to make decisions based on cash flow. And even if you're not that kind of person by nature, you can do it. That's my point. Like you will learn it just like you will learn anything else by doing it.
So true. I always say it's like I use an investment advisor. I know a lot of people say, oh, you can invest on your own. And I know I could change my oil in my car. You know what I mean? But I want to go to the expert. They're going to do it faster. They know what they're like. I want to know what they're doing and know what I'm paying for. Just like with an advisor, like they're the expert. They're watching the markets every day. And then I'm left to my own devices to maybe like cut a corner or pull money out when I'm not supposed to.
Yeah.
So it's like always using that expert that can help. Same thing. You want to know what they're doing, what you're spending money on, but you go to the experts to help you.
Amen. This is Greg Weststock, the same guy, the CEO of Aquascape. One of his quotes he repeats all the time is find someone that did what you want to do and do what they did.
Yeah.
Don't reinvent the wheel. Rob and duplicate.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that. That's like what coaching is, learning from somebody
Yep.
who's
Yep. It's an accelerant.
We're gonna send this to Greg. Give him a shout out after.
Yeah.
What is something that you've learned that you wish you would have known when you first started out in business specifically?
It probably took me a while to learn that I don't have to be the one that has the answer to every problem. This idea of who, not how. I'm not afraid of working, and my general mantra was I'll just work my way out of the problem. And when you do go down the who, not how path, like who's going to do the job or who's going to solve the problem, not how. When you do go down that path, another thing that I think has been really helpful for me, and even my team members have given me feedback on this, is that I was so intently focused on the problem or the task at hand that I would forget to think about how the way I said something would sound to the person on the other end of the conversation.
Mhm.
And so maybe a ball got dropped and I'd be like, hey, what happened? So intensely focused on solving the dropped ball that it would just be like, hey, how did this happen? How do we fix it the next time? And the other person would almost feel accused, or they were at fault, or then they never had a chance to explain what happened.
Mm.
And so I had to learn how to be like picture the conversation, assume the other person that it appears as if they had dropped the ball, assume they had the best intentions. Something out of their control happened. Always assume they had the best intentions and work in partnership with them to understand the problem and how to fix it, as opposed to just like straight to the problem and the solution without giving mind to how they're feeling about the way
Yeah.
that I am approaching it or you as a leader are approaching it. So that you as business owners, we're constantly growing, constantly finding another level. But that was a very impactful one for me. And I wish I would have learned that a little sooner. And I'm still learning it, honestly, but those were things that would have helped me quicker
Yeah.
if I'd learned them quicker.
Yeah, it's part of the process. I think that's great advice with people management and learning how personalities. And now it's even more difficult with like Slack or Gchat, like everything over text and email. Like it's so hard to interpret somebody's tone and how somebody's saying. So it's so easy to get. I've had multiple things happen where it's like, no, I didn't mean it that way. Like you heard it that way, but I totally didn't. Take it out of context, like you said. So that's a really good point to like.
Yep.
Think about that. And everybody, there's just different personalities. People take things more personally. It just depends on the person too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, a couple more questions. Do you have any favorite business investing or real estate related books or podcasts that you listen to?
I just finished Rich Dad Poor Dad, not thinking. I just finished Rich Dad Poor Dad, and the narrative of that book has been chewing over in my mind ever since. Like I'm still processing, I'm still thinking about it. And it was just the thing that I took away from that book is the power of transitioning your income from earned income to portfolio income. Earned income is tied to your calendar, your time, your work. And portfolio income is the opposite. It's an asset that's producing cash flow. And I think the general American society tends to just be like, always live at the maximum lifestyle that I can live with my earned income, which means that you are forever enslaved to earned income because there's never the margin to start producing portfolio assets and income. So
yeah,
I really, really, really enjoyed that book.
Yeah, that's also that mindset shift, right? Of like thinking of like long term and not short term, and that you need to trade money for time, trade time for money, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy. Like it actually doesn't take that long to make that flip. If you're just willing to live under your means for, 5-10 years, like you can completely flip that.
Oh yeah, even less than that. I see people turn around their finances so quickly with showing people budgeting and where their money is going every month. It's wild. So it doesn't take that long, but it takes that discipline and wanting something better.
It's the moment you could go buy that toy or that thing or whatever. Now suddenly you're like, oh, I can't say that I can't.
Right.
And now that's a discipline thing. And we just we're not very good at that.
Yeah, well, our society now is all instant gratification.
Yeah.
It's like delaying gratification. Before, people couldn't really even get credit cards or personal loans. Like people had the same couch. Our grandparents, even my parents, I remember they had the same couch for like 15 years, like growing up. They never got it. Like you didn't, it's not like today where it's like every few years, like redecorate everything, redo. It's a totally different mindset.
Exactly.
So sorry about that. Where can people find more information about you? Do you have a website, social media? Where can they find you?
Yep. So our website is synkedup.com. It's spelled with a K. So SYNKEDUP.com. And yeah, you can and you can totally find out everything about the product, and even some of my story and the mission is on there. As far as my day to day, I am pretty active on Instagram, my Instagram stories, the whole contractor community. There's a vibrant community on Instagram in the contracting space. And so I engage with a lot of our customers and prospects there. So that's where you see my day to day. And I also do our podcast where I interview contractors and ask them similar questions to what you've been asking me.
Oh, great.
And
Okay.
yeah, we call it the cost of doing business, and it's on all podcasting platforms like Spotify, etc. And if you ever want to do anything in person, once a year, we do a contractor summit event, and we pick a city, we pick a contractor or a customer of ours that we really want to highlight and do a business spotlight tour, bring in motivational speakers. The author of Simple Numbers, a book in the contractor and accounting world, is going to be our keynote speaker this year in Dayton, Ohio, October 3rd and 4th. And that whole event is just a way for us to kind of pour back into our community, get them into the same room with others that are in the grind of business just like they are. Bring some inspiration and some motivation and some practical business teaching into both in a venue and conference style, but also in actually going out and seeing an actual real business and touring their operations. So
Oh,
we do
sweet.
that as well. And looking for, actually that one's coming up here less than 2 months. So
Great. Okay. Yeah, you guys definitely check that out. If that's something you're interested in or somebody in contracting, really cool resources. And to close things out, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom for someone getting started in business or just in business in general that you want to share?
I mean, at risk of sounding cliche, you got to love what you do. And sometimes opportunity can turn into something that you love that you never even knew that you loved. So it's not like you have to have this, oh, I was born with this love or passion for something. No, it doesn't have to be that. But if you're going to get into business, it's a meat grinder and it will chew you up and spit you out. If you're and if you think you're going to leave the 40-hour jobs to have freedom to go on vacation whenever you want, you see the Instagram reels. Only entrepreneurs leave their 40-hour jobs so they can go work an 80-hour a week, job. It's if you're motivated by money or, oh, I'm going to retire sooner or more freedom, you're probably going to be disappointed. I love the quote of fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And if you do, that will drive you through the difficulties that come.
Mhm.
Also know that if you're signing yourself up to do business, you're gonna get onto a hamster wheel or get onto a treadmill that's gonna change you. Like you're gonna need to do that. If you don't, you'll fail. And the point is, like, okay, for myself, I look back now and I'm like, I am not the same person I was 5 years ago.
Mm.
And most people could say that, but I say that in the sense, the entrepreneurial sense, learning how to lead people, all those things. So if you're gonna get into business, get ready to sign yourself up to climb the ladder. Meaning personal growth, personal development, and really success is either going to be for you or not be for you based on your mindset and how you view problem solving. Like so many people, a mentor of mine, I'm going to butcher this, but he said something along the lines of owner operators or business entrepreneurs hit their ceiling and they'll either sabotage
Mhm.
by being addicted to chaos or not learning how to grow people and blaming it on the externals but they refuse to look inward, or they'll sell because they're like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm going to sell. That happens. And he had 3 S's. I forget what the third S was, but the idea is you need to raise your own ceiling through professional growth and development in your own mindset. And at the level of which you'll fly in your mindset dictates the level of success you'll find in your business.
Yeah. So good. So powerful. I love that. Such good thing, just having that passion and wanting to help people with the problem. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining today. That was awesome talking to you. And I'm so excited to see like your guys' growth. I think it's awesome. Like it's going to help so many people in that space, which a lot of people need that help. So thank you for joining. And thank you to our listeners. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. Make sure you go leave us a 5-star review and let us know what you liked about this podcast today and what you liked hearing from Weston. Aloha from Lake Tahoe. And Mike says aloha from Hawaii, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.